The rain fell hard on the stone steps of Westminster Abbey. That December night in 1983, most people had gone home. The Christmas lights along the street flickered in the wind. But one man stayed behind. His name was Thomas Brennan. He was 52 years old. A security guard. Nothing special, he would say. Just a man doing his job. But what Thomas didn't know was that in less than 10 minutes, his life would change forever. And so would someone else's. Someone very important. If you're enjoying the story, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Thomas walked slowly through the empty hall. His footsteps echoed. The ancient building was quiet. Too quiet. He checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. Almost midnight. He thought about his wife, Margaret. She would be asleep by now. Their daughter, Emma, home from university for the holidays. Probably still awake, reading by lamplight, like she always did. Thomas smiled at the thought. Just one more round, he told himself. Then he could go home. That's when he heard it. A sound. Faint. Coming from the north entrance. Thomas stopped. He listened. Rain, wind, but something else. Movement. He reached for his radio. His hand was steady. Years of military service had trained him well. Stay calm. Assess. Act. He moved toward the sound. The corridor was dark. Only emergency lights glowed dim along the walls. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. Then he saw them. 2 figures. Near the side door, one was tall, young, maybe dressed in black. The other was shorter, stockier. Both wore gloves. Thomas's heart began to pound. This wasn't right. This door was supposed to be locked. Secured. No one should be here. He was about to call out when he saw something that made his blood run cold. The tall one held a crowbar. The shorter one was pulling something from his jacket. Metal, gleaming in the dim light. A gun. Thomas pressed himself against the wall. His mind raced. He needed to call for backup. Now, but his radio would make noise. They would hear him. He watched, waited. The 2 men were focused on the door, whispering to each other, planning something. Then Thomas heard another sound. Footsteps, coming from behind the door. From inside the private wing. Someone was coming. The 2 intruders tensed. The one with the gun raised it, aimed it at the door. Thomas had seconds to decide. Call for help and risk alerting them. Or act now. Alone. The door began to open. And in that sliver of light, Thomas saw a face he recognized. A face the whole world knew. Young. Barely 35 years old. It was Prince Charles. Time stopped. Thomas saw it all unfold in slow motion. The prince, stepping through the doorway, unaware. The gunman, finger on the trigger. The other man, raising the crowbar. Thomas didn't think. He moved. He shouted. A loud, commanding voice from his army days. The kind of voice that makes men freeze. Security. Hands up now. The 2 men spun around, surprised, caught off guard. The gunman swung his weapon toward Thomas, but Thomas was already running, charging straight at them. No weapon, no backup. Just a 52-year-old guard who refused to let this happen. Prince Charles stumbled backward. Eyes wide, confused. He had been walking alone. Late night. Couldn't sleep. Just wanted some air. Now this. Thomas tackled the gunman hard. They crashed to the floor. The gun skittered across the stone. Thomas felt pain explode in his ribs. The crowbar. The other man had hit him. He couldn't breathe. But he held on. Gripped the gunman's jacket. Wouldn't let go? Run. Thomas gasped at the prince. Go, get help. Another blow. This time to his shoulder. Thomas felt something crack. The pain was blinding, but he held on. The prince didn't run. Instead, he lunged forward, grabbed the gun from the floor, pointed it at the 2 attackers. Stop. Both of you. Stop now." His voice shook, but his hands were steady. Royal training. Years of discipline. The man with the crowbar froze. The one under Thomas stopped struggling, sirens distant but growing closer. Thomas's radio had fallen during the fight. The emergency button must have been pressed. Help was coming. The two attackers looked at each other. Then they ran. Bolted toward the side door. Into the rain. Into the darkness. Prince Charles lowered the gun. His hands were shaking now. He looked at Thomas, still on the floor, bleeding, struggling to breathe. "God," the prince whispered. "You're hurt." Thomas tried to smile. "Just doing my job, sir." The prince knelt beside him, took off his own jacket, pressed it against Thomas's bleeding shoulder. "You've saved my life. You understand that? You saved my life." Security burst through the doors. Police, paramedics, shouting lights, chaos. But Thomas only remembered one thing from that moment. The prince's eyes, looking at him with something Thomas had never seen before. Not from someone so important. Gratitude. Pure, real, human. Thomas woke up 3 days later in a hospital room. Private, quiet. Margaret was there. Emma too, both crying. Both holding his hands.
You're awake,
Margaret sobbed. "Thank God, you're awake." Thomas's throat was dry. His body ached. 2 broken ribs. Fractured shoulder. Severe bruising. But alive? The prince? He croaked. "Safe," Emma said. "Because of you, Dad, the whole country knows. You're a hero." Thomas closed his eyes. Hero. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had done what anyone should do. What anyone would do. But he was wrong about that. Not everyone would have done what he did. Not everyone could have, and Prince Charles would never forget it. The media descended like a storm. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Cameras, microphones. Everyone wanted the story. Everyone wanted to talk to the man who saved the prince. But Thomas refused all interviews. He was a private man. Always had been. He didn't want fame. Didn't want attention. He just wanted to go home 2 weeks after the incident. A letter arrived at his modest flat in South London. Heavy cream paper. A royal seal. Margaret brought it to him as he sat in his armchair. "Still recovering? Still in pain?" "It's from Buckingham Palace," she whispered. Her hands trembled. Thomas opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note. Not typed. Not formal. Personal. "Dear Mr. Brennan, words cannot express my gratitude for what you did. You risked everything without hesitation. Because of you, I am here to write this letter. Because of you, I can see my sons grow up. I would like to meet with you, to thank you properly, to honor your courage. But I understand you value your privacy. Whatever you decide, please know that I will never forget what you did. You are a true hero, Mr. Brennan." In the finest sense of the word, with deepest respect and gratitude, Charles Thomas read it 3 times. His eyes were wet. Margaret leaned over his shoulder. "What will you do?" she asked. Thomas thought for a long moment. He looked around their small living room. Pictures of Emma on the walls. Modest furniture. A life built on honest work. Simple values. "I'll write back," he said quietly. "I'll thank him, but I won't meet him. This isn't about recognition. It never was." Margaret kissed the top of his head. She understood. That was the man she married. Humble, selfless. Thomas wrote back that same evening. A simple letter, respectful, grateful for the prince's words. But he declined the public recognition. Declined the ceremony. Declined everything except the prince's thanks. What Thomas didn't know was that Charles read that letter alone in his study at Highgrove, and something in those humble words touched him deeply. The prince made a decision that night. If Thomas wouldn't accept public honor, then he would receive something else. Something private. Something permanent. The following month, trust was established. Anonymous. Quiet. It paid for Emma's university tuition. All of it. When she graduated, it funded her medical school. Thomas never knew where the money came from. The paperwork said it was a scholarship for children of security personnel. He was proud, grateful, but never suspected the truth. Years passed. Thomas retired from security work. His injuries never fully healed. Some nights, when the weather turned cold, his shoulder ached, his ribs hurt, but he never complained. He spent his days in his garden, walking with Margaret, visiting Emma at the hospital where she worked as a doctor. Life was quiet, good, peaceful. Meanwhile, Prince Charles never forgot. Every year on December 15th, the anniversary of that night, he did something most people never noticed. He sent a single white rose to a flat in South London. No card, no message, just a rose. Thomas would find it on his doorstep each year. Always the same day. Always a white rose. A symbol of remembrance. Of gratitude? He thought it was from someone at the old security office. A kind gesture. He would put it in a vase. Show Margaret. Then life would continue. But there was something else. Something Thomas would never discover. Something that would only be revealed many years later. A secret honor that Prince Charles, and later King Charles, paid to the man who saved his life. 20 years went by. The world changed. Princess Diana passed away in that terrible accident in Paris. The nation mourned. The royal family faced their darkest hours. Thomas watched it all on television. His heart broke for the prince. For those two young boys, William and Harry, walking behind their mother's coffin. He thought about writing a letter, offering his condolences. But what could he say? What comfort could a retired guard offer to someone going through such grief? So he said nothing, just watched. Just remembered that night so long ago when he had helped save a life. That December, the white rose came, as always. But this time, there was something different. A small card. Tucked inside the delivery, Thomas opened it. The handwriting was familiar, though he had only seen it once, decades ago. Thank you for your kind thoughts. In my darkest hour, I remember that there are still good men in this world. You were the first to show me that. C. Thomas sat down slowly. His hands shook. All these years, all these roses. They had been from him. From Charles? Margaret found him in his chair an hour later. The card still in his hand. Tears on his cheeks. Thomas? She was alarmed. What's wrong? He showed her the card. She read it. Then looked at the white rose on the table. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Every year, she whispered. All this time, Thomas nodded. He never forgot. After everything that happened, everything he went through, he never forgot. More years passed. Thomas grew older. His hair turned completely white. His steps became slower. But every December 15th, the rose arrived. In 2005, Prince Charles married Camilla. The press was harsh. Public opinion was divided. But Thomas smiled when he saw the wedding photos. The prince looked happy. Finally happy. That year's rose came with another note. Simple, brief. I have found happiness again. Thank you for making sure I lived to see this day. See, Thomas kept every note, every card, in a small wooden box that Margaret had given him, sacred, private, their secret connection to the future king. In 2011, Emma got married. A small ceremony. Family and close friends. Thomas walked her down the aisle. His shoulder ached that day, but his heart was full. At the reception, a delivery arrived. A stunning bouquet of white roses. 50 of them. The card said only, "Congratulations to the bride and her heroic father." C. Emma was confused. Who is C. Dad? Thomas looked at Margaret, then at his daughter, beautiful in her wedding dress. A successful doctor. A good person. It's an old friend, he said softly. Someone I helped once. A long time ago, that night alone in his hotel room, Thomas pulled out the wooden box. He looked at all the notes. All the cards. Spanning decades, a friendship built on silence, on respect, on a debt that could never be repaid. But there was one thing Thomas didn't know. One secret Charles had kept even from him. Every year on December 15th, before the rose was sent, Prince Charles did something else. Something private. Something he had done for 30 years. He would go to Westminster Abbey, alone, in the evening. When no one was watching, he would stand in the exact spot where Thomas had saved his life, and he would pray. A prayer of thanks. For Thomas, for Margaret, for Emma, for the life he had been allowed to live. No photographers. No security team. No public record. Just a man remembering the night someone chose to save him. Chose to risk everything for him. This was the silent honor. The private tribute. The secret that would remain hidden for years. Until one December evening in 2022. When everything changed. Asterisk. September 8th, 2022. Queen Elizabeth II passed away at Balmoral Castle. The nation mourned. The world watched. Charles became king. Thomas sat in his living room, now 91 years old. Margaret had passed away 2 years earlier. His body was frail. His mind was still sharp. He watched the news coverage. The new king, King Charles. Aye, so much had changed. The young prince he had saved was now an old man himself. At 73. Wearing the crown. Carrying the weight of a nation, Emma visited him daily now, worried about him living alone. But Thomas insisted. This was his home, his memories. Margaret was here in every room. He wouldn't leave, Dad, Emma said one evening in November. I need to tell you something. She sat beside him, held his hand. Her face was serious. What is it? Thomas asked. That scholarship I got. For university. For medical school. She paused. I found out who really paid for it. Thomas frowned. The Security Personnel Fund. We knew that. Emma shook her head. Tears in her eyes. No, Dad. That fund never existed. It was a cover. The money came from a private trust. Established in 1984 by Prince Charles. Thomas stared at her. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't be true? How do you know this? A letter came to the hospital yesterday. From the King's private secretary. They're writing a book. About acts of service and loyalty to the crown. They want to include your story. They asked permission to reveal what he did for our family. Thomas couldn't speak. His throat was tight. All those years, all that money. He had worked extra shifts to help with Emma's education. Saved every penny. But it had never been necessary. He paid for everything, Emma continued. And he made sure we never knew. Made sure you would never feel like you owed him anything. Why? Thomas whispered. Why? Tell me now. Because he wants to honor you properly. Before it's too late. He wants the world to know what you did, and what he has tried to do to thank you. Thomas closed his eyes. Memories flooded back. That rainy night. The pain, the fear. The prince's eyes, looking at him with such gratitude. December came. The 15th arrived. Thomas waited by the window, wondering if the rose would come. If the tradition would continue now that Charles was king. If he even had time to remember one old guard anymore. At 3 in the afternoon, car pulled up outside. Not a delivery van. A royal car. Dark. Elegant. Thomas's heart began to race. Emma stood beside him, both watching. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Walked to the door. Knocked. Emma answered. Spoke briefly. Then turned to her father. Her face was pale. Dad, she said quietly. He's here. Who? But Thomas already knew. He could see past the man in the suit. To the figure still in the car. Watching, waiting. The king, Emma whispered. He's come himself. Thomas stood slowly. His legs shook. His hands trembled. After 13 years, after all this time, the king was here. At his door, Emma helped him to the door. Opened it. The man in the suit stepped aside, and there he was. King Charles III, older now, gray hair lines on his face. But those eyes. Thomas would have known them anywhere, the same eyes that had looked at him on that terrible night. Filled with fear, then gratitude, then something like wonder that anyone would do what Thomas had done. The king stepped forward. In his hands, a single white rose. "Mr. Brennan," he said softly. "Thomas, may I come in?" Thomas nodded. He couldn't speak, couldn't find words. The King of England was standing at his door. Asking permission to enter? They sat in the small living room. Emma made tea with shaking hands. The security detail waited outside, respectful, quiet. The king looked around the room, at the photos on the walls. Thomas and Margaret on their wedding day. Emma's graduation. A lifetime captured in frames. "You have a beautiful home," the king said. "A beautiful life." "I've been blessed," Thomas replied. His voice was rough with emotion. "So have I." The king leaned forward. "Because of you. Every moment I've had since that night, every joy, every sorrow, every sunrise, I've had it all because you chose to act, chose to save me." Thomas shook his head. "I was just doing my job, Your Majesty." "No," the king's voice was firm. "Your job was to call for help, to raise an alarm. You did so much more. You put yourself between me and death. Without hesitation, without thought for your own safety." Silence filled the room. Emma brought the tea, set it down gently, sat beside her father. "I don't know about Emma's education," Thomas said quietly. "I know what you did." The king smiled, sad, gentle. "You were never supposed to know. I wanted to help without you feeling obligated, without creating a debt." "Why?" Thomas asked. "Why so much? For so long?" The king set down his tea, looked directly at Thomas. "Because you gave me my life. And I wanted to honor that gift every single day. I wanted your daughter to have every opportunity, your wife to have every comfort. You too have peace in your retirement." "The roses," Thomas said. Every year, the king confirmed. "On the anniversary. But there's something else. Something I need to tell you. Something I've done for nearly 40 years. He paused, took a breath. "Every December 15th, before I send the rose, I go to Westminster Abbey, to the exact spot where it happened, where you saved me. And I pray, I give thanks for you. For the life I was allowed to live." Thomas felt tears on his cheeks. He didn't wipe them away. "I got to see my boys grow up," the king continued, his voice breaking now. "I got to watch William marry Kate, to hold my grandchildren, to become king, all because you were there that night, all because you were brave." "I lost Margaret," Thomas said, 2 years ago. "I know. I sent flowers anonymously. I couldn't attend, couldn't intrude on your grief, but I mourned with you. She was a remarkable woman. I could tell from your letters." Thomas reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn photograph. Margaret, young, beautiful, smiling. "She was," he whispered. The king stood, reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. "I have something for you. Something I should have given you decades ago. But I respected your wishes, your privacy. Now, I hope you'll accept it." He opened the box. Inside was a medal. Simple, elegant, engraved with a date. December 15th, 1983, the Royal Victorian Medal for personal service to the Crown. To me, I had it made years ago, kept it waiting. For this moment, Thomas tried to stand. The king gently pushed him back down, knelt beside his chair, pinned the medal to Thomas's cardigan himself. "Thank you," the king said. "Thank you for my life. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being the man you are." They sat together for an hour, talking, remembering. Two old men who had shared one night that changed everything. When the king finally left, he shook Thomas's hand. held it for a long moment. Then he was gone. Emma sat with her father in the quiet that followed. Thomas touched the medal on his chest, felt its weight. "Are you okay, Dad?" Thomas nodded. "I am. I really am." 3 months later, Thomas Brennan passed away peacefully in his sleep. Emma was with him. The medal was on his chest. The white rose from that December was in a vase beside his bed. At his funeral, a simple affair at a small church in South London, a car arrived. The same royal car. The king didn't attend. That would have been too much. Too public. But he sent his private secretary a wreath of white roses. 50 of them. And a card in the king's own handwriting. To Thomas Brennan, the bravest man I ever knew. Rest well, my friend. You have earned it. With eternal gratitude, Charles, or later that year, the story was finally told. In a book about acts of service and loyalty, about ordinary people who did extraordinary things, about one guard who saved a prince and the silent honor that prince. Later king paid him for nearly 40 years. The world learned about the white roses, the secret prayers, the trust fund, the decades of quiet gratitude. People were moved, touched, some cried. The story spread across the world. A reminder that kindness is never forgotten, that courage matters, that some debts can never be fully repaid, but can be honored every single day. At Westminster Abbey, a small plaque was placed. Not in a prominent spot. Somewhere quiet, private, where Charles still goes every December 15th. It reads simply, "In memory of Thomas Brennan, December 15th, 1983. Service, courage, humanity, and every year." On that date, a single white rose appears beside it, left by the king himself. In the early morning, when no one is watching, a silent honor, a private tribute, a friendship that death itself cannot end. This is the story they never wanted told. But it's a story that needed to be shared, because it reminds us all that in our darkest moments, there are still heroes, still good people, still those who will risk everything for a stranger. And it reminds us that true gratitude never fades. It endures. It persists. It honors. Silently. Perfectly. Forever.